Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, August 13th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the Virginia House of Delegates race. The Democratic Party in the state of Virginia is in an extraordinarily good position going into this year's November elections. A number of races across the state in state legislative boundaries, and as well as on the governor level, attorney general level, and lieutenant governor level, Democrats are on track for a very solid victory in this November election. Now, looking at Virginia, it has been one that we have covered primarily speaking on the gubernatorial lens. There's a video going out later today that explicitly talks about the governor's election, but this focus today is going to be on the House of Delegates and where Democrats might be navigating throughout the remainder of this election cycle. Now, State Navigate is a great website to take a look on a district-by-district basis in the state of Virginia and arguably in many other parts of the country. You're going to find that specifically they've released forecasts for the 2025 governor's race in Virginia as well as the House of Delegates race, to which they already declare that Democrats are the overwhelming favorites to win a majority in the House of Delegates. Now, this video, obviously, from the title of it, you can tell isn't just about Democrats winning the majority. They currently have a 92% chance of winning the chamber. But what is more impressive, I think, is the fact that Republicans have just an 8% chance of winning the majority in the state of Virginia, but Democrats have nearly double the odds of winning a supermajority in the state of Virginia, meaning that it would be, in all purposes, one of the biggest majorities Democrats have had in the state of Virginia in an extraordinarily long time. The last time there was a blue wave election in the state of Virginia was in the 2017 Virginia House of Delegates race. But guess what? Even that map, though Democrats gained 15 seats across the chamber, still lost control eventually due to a straw poll in a tied district in favor of the Republican Party. The Republicans won in 2017, despite Democrats dominating in the statewide popular vote, and the districts had been drawn in a way that ultimately benefited the Republican Party way more than the Democratic Party. Now, Democrats got to a point where in 2019, they finally got to being in the majority, but it was the first time that Democrats held control of both the governorship and the state house since 1993. Now, Democrats are on the pathway for an electoral victory in Virginia that trounces any record that the Democrats have set in the 21st century, and it would be a monumental victory. Now, taking a look at these odds, it really goes to show, especially given that Democrats right now are only coming into this with an advantage of just one seat more than what's necessary for a majority if Democrats are to have the majority. Democrats look at this and they say, how do we expand? Going from 51 to a 15% chance that you go all the way up to a supermajority, which would be 67, is fascinating. Really, when I look at the numbers across these districts and I look at the districts that are flipping, you're talking about ones with a lot of Republican incumbents where the margin isn't even expected to be that close. Many of these districts are expected to go in directions where Democrats are winning by 4 points, by 6 points, in ways that Republicans just simply cannot counteract. And the fact remains that there's an outsized chance, the same way that there is for Republicans to win the majority, that Democrats win a supermajority in the state delegation, giving them full control of all the chambers in the state of Virginia going into the next cycle and the next, governing session. Thinking about where you are, Democrats already had a 15% chance of being in a Democratic supermajority. I mean, you have to think about the way this race really has evolved because it really wasn't meant to be this way. If we're being honest and we're looking at the trend line here, Republicans were never really in a good position to win the majority, especially given that they didn't have the majority. But the last time they had a governor's election actually in the state of Virginia, when Glenn Youngkin defeated Terry McAuliffe, the Republicans actually did, in fact, win a majority in the House of Delegates. They flipped 7 seats from the Democrats and took the number 55 for the Democrats, brought it down to 48, and Republicans jumped up to 52, giving them control. The only thing that Democrats had going for them was that the Democrats maintained control of the Virginia State Senate, to which even today Democrats maintain that advantage by just 2 seats. Now, unlike the House of Delegates, the Virginia Senate is not up every election, though they do have election cycles, and we will see, some elections take place. But the point is that as of now, looking at the races, 2023 was a great example when their state Senate race came through because we can find what that Senate map ultimately ended up with for the Democratic Party if we get to the actual bottom here. November, or I guess Virginia elections in 2023, jumping all the way over to the Virginia Senate elections, you're going to find, Democrats might have lost seats, but ultimately maintained that advantage. In 2019, you saw that Democrats got back that majority, which gave them for 2 years an incumbent Democratic governor with a Democratic House of Delegates and a Democratic Senate. So this was their trifecta, but it only lasted 2 years. So here's what's happening. Democrats maintain the Senate. Looking at the 2025 elections, Democrats expand their advantage. And here's how it goes too. Thinking about some more high-level policy points and so, more imbued policy discussions around what a majority might look like. Because Republicans currently have the governorship in Virginia, there's been no discussion around redrawing the maps in Virginia, abolishing the independent redistricting commission that has, Republicans and Democrats who are in elected office serving on that council. I mean, you're going to find that those will be things in conversation as Virginia becomes more of a Democratic state, just simply with a Democratic governor. And looking at how it voted in the last presidential election, I don't think it's to anyone's surprise that Kamala Harris won this state, Biden won this state, Hillary Clinton won this state, Obama won this state. The last time Virginia voted for a Republican for president was in 2004. And get this, Kamala Harris did better than Hillary Clinton did in the state of Virginia. And you might think, okay, why is that noteworthy? Why am I singling out this state? Well, one, we're talking about it, but two, because Hillary Clinton's running mate, Tim Kaine, was from Virginia. So for Kamala Harris to outpace Clinton in Virginia clearly shows that in an election that voted to the right of the 2016 election, almost every single state that Trump won, he did so by a larger margin than he did in 16, save North Carolina and Georgia. But Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, the list goes on. But Virginia shifted to the left. And that shows that even in an election where Donald Trump did very well, Virginia really wouldn't budge. And now looking at where it is as a state that is close in proximity to the district, but directly impacted by the federal workforce layoffs, by the DOGE cuts, by the way in which you are seeing the federalizing of the DC law enforcement, you are finding that a lot of these issues and points for Donald Trump, the Republican Party, for Democrats nationally, directly impact Virginia and especially those areas and districts that surround Washington, D.C. And that's where you find a lot of disaffection with the Republican Party in these state legislative boundaries. That's where you find Democrats in the state legislature and out of it in a better position to compete in the House of Delegates. And just broadly thinking about what an election like this might usher in, it could be the largest majority the Democrats have seen in a very, very long time. I mean, if we actually want to get into the nitty-gritty and look back and see the last time the Democrats, had this advantage, we're going to have to keep going because the numbers don't look great for the Democrats, historically speaking. Virginia has been a very strong state for the Democratic Party. To think that there would even be a point where they were at a supermajority, I think we'd have to go all the way back to around this point, and even then, Wikipedia doesn't even have the data that goes before that, back that far. But the point is that this right here, in the 1989 election, where Democrats got 59 seats, is roughly what Democrats are on track to win in 2025. And so throw out 2017. That is an election I think a lot of Democrats looked to and said that was a great election, but they didn't even win the House of Delegates in that race because the map was not conducive for a Democratic victory. But this one is not only conducive, but it invites it, especially in a wave. Because if it was a victory for Republicans like it was in 2021, this map also would usher in a Republican victory. Because it has before. We forget that it is the same House maps that in 2023, Democrats only were able to win a 51-49 advantage. And this was with pushback against a second Trump, candidacy and Glenn Youngkin to some degree. And keep in mind, post-Dobbs, a very engaged electorate, a very educated electorate in Virginia. All the demographics that you would have said Democrats should have done very well, and to a degree they did, flip the chamber, essentially halting any progress of the Youngkin administration. And now it's on for something entirely different. Because Spanberger is on track for such a solid victory, I kid you not, this is going to be a very big one. She'll win by double digits. I don't doubt that at this point. I might have 6 months ago because we know how pesky these races can be. But as it stands 3 months out before the election, there's a higher chance the Democrats win a supermajority, and it's double the odds of Republicans even winning a majority when, based on the numbers today, they are down simply by just 2 seats. Just 2 seats. Flip 2, Republicans win. Not only are they not flipping 2, they might lose more. They might lose at least 7, maybe all the way up to 15. And that is really the severity of this moment for the Virginia GOP. That they've reached a point in the electoral process that they are not even, they aren't even outpacing where they were in 2017. And despite these headlines from the right-wing sources, Fox News, whoever, saying Trump is more popular than he was before, sure. But as the electorate, do they like him more? No. Because post-Dobbs and post-22 midterms, there has been a shift in engagement and who votes in elections that are off-cycle and are for high-propensity voters. When white voters shifted in favor of Kamala Harris relative to Hillary Clinton's performance in 2016 and relative to Biden's performance in 2020, that should have been the warning sign for the GOP. Because anyone who took a high school civics course pre-pandemic can likely tell you that it was standard convention that the most likely groups of voters were older voters, were white voters, and wealthier voters, and educated voters. A demographic that adored the Vineyard Vines, Mitt Romney day and age of the Republican Party. But that's not where we're at, are we? We're in the day and age of big balls and Doge, and that Republican Party does not represent a lot of these voters. Maybe you're laughing, but the point is that I'm being very realistic about this. That is not the modern day GOP, and that is not the modern day GOP that these voters want to vote for. Not to mention, too, that high propensity voters just at baseline, even taking away trend lines and demographics that we historically knew preferred the GOP more than Democrats in the past, are now rapidly changing away. White suburban women in particular, huge demographic. Republicans relied on them for victory. Donald Trump did not need to rely on them in 2024. Why? They shifted towards Harris. But he counteracted that and expanded because he was able to make major gains amongst minority voters. But guess what? As we've been seeing in all of the coverage and all of the data points, minority support for Donald Trump has hit a record low. His support amongst the American populace is nearing a record low. And in elections like these, this is why you find that when the electorate might fully vote in 2024, Virginia could see, if it was to coincide, a narrower House of Delegates race. But in an election year like 2025, it will be the voters who are angry, who are engaged, who are tuned in, that turn into a November election in an off election. Not a midterm cycle, not a presidential cycle, but an off year. And those voters, historically, post-22 midterms, have leaned more towards the Democratic Party. And in a state like Virginia, that has been directly affected by this administration to the highest degree, probably of any state in the nation, at least in terms of direct impact on the jobs and the economy and the workforce in the state, not to mention a variety of other things. But the point is that Virginia will likely rebel against the Republican Party, and in doing so, will usher in Democrats into a majority with a 92% chance the Democrats win the majority. But the headline here, the moneymaker here for Democrats, is that there is a 15% chance Democrats win a supermajority. Republicans just have an 8% chance of winning the chamber. Majority versus majority, Democrats outpace Republicans 9-1. On a supermajority versus simple majority for Republicans, a ratio of 2-1 in terms of electoral odds. Fascinating, and really detrimental to the Republican Party. And this shows that when states are directly impacted by Donald Trump and his involvement and what he has maneuvered himself into doing in these surrounding states and across the country, there is a real electoral impact that might not be felt by the Republicans on the outskirts of Virginia and New Jersey, outside of these states that don't have elections in 2025. But their time will come. And just as it did in 2018, there is no doubt in my mind today, August 13th, 2025, that Republicans are on track for a monumental loss, not only in this November election, but the 2026 midterms too. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2025 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.